Frightening moments aboard an AirAsia flight. The plane violently shaking mid-flight over the Indian Ocean. The Airbus A330, carrying over 350 passengers heading to Malaysia, was forced to return to Australia after engine trouble. About 90 minutes later, passengers say they heard a loud bang.
The captain said that one of the blades on the left engine was missing.
Passengers say the plane shuddered for nearly 2 hours. Many saying it felt like being inside a washing machine.
The plane was really, really limping on, like it was shuddering.
I thought the whole plane was just going to go plummeting down.
The pilot telling passengers he was scared and asking them twice to pray.
Listen to their briefing. Our survival depends on your cooperating.
Some putting on a brave face, others fearing the worst.
There were lots of people crying, lots of people pulling out the life jackets and stuff, like pretty much preparing. Like we thought there was a good chance that we were going to go down.
Marine Emergency Services standing by for a water rescue. Passengers breathing a sigh of relief once the plane touched down safely, before waiting hours for another flight. The low-cost airline is investigating what happened, calling the incident a technical issue, adding the safety of our guests is our utmost priority.
Nope, not a chance. I hate planes. I loathe flying. It's the worst. You know what the difference is between a plane and a missile? Planes only explode sometimes. And that's all I could think about when I'm flying. I know I'm a big baby, but like, think about it. Like, I'm too big for the plane to begin with. Nobody wants to sit near me. They'd rather be near the crying baby. I just don't like them. And I know that the stats, I know the metrics and analytics say that I'm totally safe. You're more likely to crash and die on the way to the airport than you are in an actual plane. And now that just means I'm scared of driving to the airport. I hate it. Imagine being in that situation on that plane. Imagine you're sitting there and it's just shaking like a washing machine for 2 hours. Sounds horrific. And all you can do is trust that the pilot is going to be able to help you. What is a pilot? A pilot, do you know this person? You've never met him or her. You don't know their capacity. Are they a good pilot? Did they get 100% on their test for pilot school, for pilot college, or did they squeak by with a 2.0 barely? I want the smarter pilot. I want the one that was the valedictorian of plane college. Is there plane college? How do pilots even go to school? Do they go to school? Do pilots even exist? What is happening? I hate it. On January 15th, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 struck a flock of geese shortly after taking off from a New York airport. Both engines began to lose power. Terrifying. Geese. Not terrorists. Not a missile. The terrorist of the bird kingdom. Geese. The ones that when you're golfing, they will come and attack you and hunt you. They don't care if you're as big as I am. They will come wings spreading, just with their neck like a cobra coming at you. Geese are terrible. I hate them. And now they're taking out our planes, plotting against us. The plane's about to crash over New York City, one of the highest per capita density of population cities in the world. This isn't just about the plane about to crash. This is about death and destruction, cataclysmic levels of destruction and death. And the pilot, Captain Chelsea Sully, you may have heard of his name. There's a movie, Sully, about him. He made quick and critical decisions. He made quick and smart decisions and ended up attempting a water landing in the Hudson River. That's like trying to land a plane in the North Saskatchewan River. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on that plane. I don't even want to go in the North Saskatchewan River, right? But this event, after the successful water landing, as you could see behind me a second ago, became known as the miracle on the Hudson. Nobody died, and those geese didn't get their way. Imagine you were on that plane. Imagine that you were feeling those engines slow down. I don't know if you're scared of flying like me or not. In that moment, you're terrified. It's horrifying. How would you feel? Every signal, every emotion you have is telling you, you ain't gonna make it. The rubber masks, the emergency masks, they fall from the roof. The sirens are going off. You feel the plane slowly slowing down. People are screaming, crying, panicking. How would you respond? You're at the mercy of the situation, and the only person who has any say over life and death of you and thousands of other people is the pilot. And all you can do is trust that this person that you've never met, that you've only kind of heard exists, is kind of up at the front, a locked door between you, is in control. And you have to have faith that that person is going to help you. What would you do? What do you do when life feels hopeless? What do you do when it feels like your circumstances are getting the best of you? How do you respond to those moments of chaos in your life when it feels like all hope has given up on you? Do you respond with optimism, anger, panic? Do you stand up in the storm? Is that your natural response? Or do you turtle? Do you freak out? And do you just cry in the corner in the fetal position? We all have kind of different responses to that. This week, we're starting a new series based on the life of Moses, his leadership, his life, his failures, his story, called Did I Stutter? As you can see behind me. Moses is an interesting story. A lot of us, if you've been around church, you've probably heard the name Moses. He's a major historical figure and a major historical part of the Bible. His story is filled with ups and downs and crazy humble beginnings and highs and lows. We can learn so much from him, and that's why we decided as a church that we should go through his life. And his life starts in the book of Exodus, which is the second book of the Bible. Genesis, beginning, is the first. The second book is Exodus. And we catch up with Moses, who was a Hebrew. He was one of God's people. And we catch him, they're living in Egypt. And at that time, there was something going on. They were really growing in population. There's more and more of these people, these Hebrews, starting to be born, and the population was growing. And the king, or the Pharaoh at the time of Egypt, he started to become concerned with that. He was scared of the population growth. And we catch up with him in the book of Exodus, in Exodus 1, 9 to 10. It says, he said to his people, this is Pharaoh, look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are. We must make a plan to keep them from growing even more. If we don't, and if war breaks out, they'll join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will escape from the country. I find it interesting that he wasn't worried that, he would lose the war, but that he would lose Israel. So he decided to take the Hebrews and to oppress them and make them slaves. That was a solution. And keep them under his thumb and under the thumb of the Egyptian empire so that they would never be able to rise up. They would never be a challenge to him in any way, or to his organization and his country and his empire. So another thing that he decided to do was to keep the population under control. He didn't want any more Hebrew babies to be born, specifically boys. So he ordered that every midwife in that kingdom would go and kill any baby that was born. It's dark, but it was the order. He was really ruthless. But they soon learned that these Hebrew women, they were tough as nails. And they were secretly having babies without the midwives even knowing, with no help. Going cold turkey. They were just pushing out babies with no nurse, no midwife, I don't even know. I ain't touching that one. But it sounds horrible. They were as tough as it gets. So he's starting to realize, this isn't working out. They're still having babies. They're not listening. For some reason, they don't want their babies to die. I can't figure it out. And he puts out an even worse order. He says that all the Hebrew baby boys under a certain age, they would be thrown into the Nile River, murdered horrifically in front of their parents, in front of their mothers. So we catch up in Exodus 2, 1 to 4. And it says, about this time, a man and woman from the tribe of Levi got married. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She saw that he was a special baby and kept him hidden for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of papyrus reeds and waterproofed it with tar and pitch. And she put the baby in the basket and laid it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile River. The baby's sister then stood at a distance watching to see what would happen. Kind of scary, right? First of all, I don't know how you hide a baby for 3 months. They tend to make noise, but she did. She was committed because as a mother, this was what she needed. This was her maternal instinct kicking in to save her baby. And if you've heard this story before, you watch there's a famous cartoon movie, Prince of Egypt, and you see these things, and in Sunday school, we kind of gloss over this. This mother's baby's life was at stake. And she's hiding this baby for 3 months because if she doesn't, it's dead. So she decides that there's only one way to deal with this because the soldiers are coming. They're coming and they're gonna kill the baby. They're gonna throw Moses, who was this baby, into the river to drown, to die. Horrifying. Imagine that's your child. Imagine you're Moses' mom in this moment. What would you do? So she gets just a basket of papyrus reeds. Just like, this is not super sound. It's not designed for being a boat of any kind, and kind of waterproofs it in a makeshift way. She MacGyvers it, puts some tar in there, and floats him down the river. This isn't a rubber dinghy. This isn't a life raft. This is a basket. This is a desperation play. This is a long shot. This is desperation in action. This basket is by no means safe. And on top of that, it's not just that he could drown. The Nile had Nile crocodiles, the most aggressive and largest crocodiles in the world. Hippos. Hippos may look chubby and cute, but they are bad people. Did you know that hippos are the #1 killer of humans on Earth? And they are vegetarians. They're not eating people. They're just jerks. They just want to hurt you and kill you. They're bad. They're the serial killers of the water. And on top of that, they had African rock pythons. I don't even need to explain that one to you, I don't think. So many more things. It is terrifying. If Australia was a Disneyland ride, this would be it. There was not a safe place for a baby. Moses' mom was stuck between a rock and a hard place. She had 2 choices, and neither of them were very good. Spend 5 more minutes with her baby. As she hears the soldiers coming, spend 5 more minutes, maybe even less, just moments longer with her baby, and then have to watch the baby be thrown into the Nile and drown or eaten or basically just dead. A horrific sight. Or she can put him in this basket and float him down the terrifying river full of crocs, snakes, and hippos, amongst other ways to die. Thousands of ways to die. Basically, she's taking Moses, the baby, from a 100% chance of death to a 99.99% chance of death. And I could see myself, if I was in that moment, it'd be easy to choose the selfish one. A few more moments, because I need that, because it's my child. Imagine as she makes the hard choice, as you make the hard choice to give your baby that 0.01% chance to survive, as she floats him down the river and she sees the basket floating. First of all, probably just excited that it floated to begin with, but hearing the baby's cries fade into the distance. A little bit further, a little bit quieter, until you can't see or hear your baby anymore. How would you feel? You don't know if you're ever going to see your kid again. You're pretty sure you won't. If he dies, you won't know. If he lives, you won't know. All you know is that you have to choose the option that had a little bit of hope. She had to have faith that God would take care of her baby. She had to have faith that she would see this thing come in some way to a hopeful scenario. And even if she didn't get to see it, that her flesh and blood, the baby that she loved, would have even just a glimmer of hope, just a crack in the door of light, that there would be a good ending to this. Logic and reason would lead us to guess that Moses either drowned or died or was eaten by the cabal of dangerous creatures that were floating around in that river. And the betting odds couldn't have been more against him. But luckily, when it comes to God's plan, he leaves nothing to chance. He never, ever fails us. The project, he never fails you. Friends, listen, he will never fail you. Even when it feels like all hope is lost, when chaos is ruling the day, he will never, ever fail you. We continue on with the story. We catch up in the next couple of verses. In verse 5, soon Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the riverbank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it for her. When she opened it, she saw the baby. The little boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This must be one of the Hebrew children, she said. Then the baby's sister approached the princess. Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you, she said. Yes, do, the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. Take this baby and nurse him for me. The princess told the baby's mother, I will pay you for your help. So the woman took her baby home and nursed him. Pretty unlikely. Pretty unlikely that this is how that scenario went. What are the chances? The baby floats down, and the Pharaoh, who's literally ordering the death of all of these babies, his daughter picks up the baby and decides to keep it. Now, it doesn't say how that conversation went with Pharaoh and his daughter. But if there's any girls here, there's an advantage over dads that I didn't have with my father. Tears, just being nicer probably. But she convinced him. She convinced him to keep the baby, to keep Moses. And then they send off, because obviously biologically she wasn't pregnant, so she couldn't nurse him, sent off to get Moses' mom to go and nurse him. And that's kind of a crazy coincidence, but when you really have faith and when you understand that God is in control, does it really surprise you all that much? I want to talk about Moses' mom more than I want to talk about Moses. This whole series is about Moses, but if we don't talk about his mom, we're missing really the beginning of the story. Because Moses' mom is one of the biggest heroes of the Bible. She's one of the biggest heroes that I've ever witnessed. And we don't think about that, right? Moses, the leader, he freed the slaves. He did all these miracles. He was God's chosen person. What an incredible person. What an incredible leader. And we're going to get to all those stories. But if it wasn't for Moses' mom and the bravery that she had and the heroics that she put out and the faith that she had in the face of sure death and chaos and destruction, we don't have the story of Moses. In her most hopeless moment, Moses' mom saw God was giving the slightest glimmer of hope to the endless darkness of her circumstance, and she took the little bit that he gave her and she ran with it. She gave hope and saw hope where there was none. She knew that God would never give up on her if she could just do everything that she possibly could. Even if it was minuscule, even if it was tiny, she did everything she could. She saw faith, she saw hope, and she ran with it. Often we see Moses as the hero of the story, right? He did all these amazing things. But without his mom, without this decision, this selfless decision of faith, nothing happens. The entire nation of Israel, the Hebrew people, they remain in slavery and probably are eventually murdered off without that decision, without his mom. And there's a point that I want to hit on this. Because sometimes I think that in our natural way that we view our lives and view the world, we always see ourselves as the hero of our own story, right? Like, it makes sense. You see the world through your lens. You are the most important person in your life because you are you. No matter how much you love someone else, you don't see them. Your natural instincts don't flow through their instincts. You are the hero of your own story on some level. And when we see things, when we read the Bible, when we even just think through movies we've watched, we always picture ourselves to be the hero. We think, what if I was that person? And sometimes I think we can get a little bit arrogant in our own contributions to the world around us. We need to take life by the horns, and we need to be the one that changes the world. I know I do. I'm like, oh, how can I be the hero of the story? How can I be the one that gets all the glory? How can I be the one that does all these things and is remembered in the history books and the stories are about him? And maybe that's not you totally, but we have that instinct in us because that's how we're designed, that's how we are. But I want to look at Moses' mom and recognize that she doesn't really get a lot of attention. You probably haven't spent a lot of time thinking about her. The rest of Exodus, the rest of Moses' story doesn't have a lot about her at all. But she did something incredible. And for that, I want you to know that sometimes in our lives, when we do good things in general, moral things, kind things, but things specifically for Jesus, sometimes we think that we have to be the beginning and the end of the story. Here to tell you, you might not get that. Not all the time. But that doesn't mean that you did heroic things. It doesn't mean that you didn't make major contributions to life. Maybe you were trying to get a friend to come with you to church and you invited them so many times and maybe they showed up one time and it just didn't hit. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm not coming back. Or you tried to have conversations, or you did have conversations about Jesus with people at your work, at your school, in your family. And you talked, but they just really weren't open to it. And it's not gonna go anywhere, and you're disappointed because you really felt like you were gonna make the difference. You really thought that you would be able to articulate the reasons why they needed this thing, or you were able to be the person who made that change, that social justice change that you saw where there was problems in the world, but you just could only make minor, small things. You could only do it on a person-to-person level. You didn't change the system. You didn't change the world. So why did you even try? God gives us opportunities to be the building blocks that build the foundation of incredible things sometimes. And sometimes we have to be okay with the reality that we are not the hero of the story, at least not the one that people remember. But when we trust and have faith that God is in control, that we play our role, that we build the foundation of things, that we plant the seed of what will eventually grow into something beautiful and amazing, we actually get to be a part of something heroic that is bigger than just ourselves, bigger than just our own contributions, bigger than the glory and the celebration that we might get if we were part of it. You ever been there? What is it for you you've been holding on to? You feel like you didn't do enough. Because I can tell you that friend that you invited to church or you had that conversation with or that difference you made in one single life, that's a seed that's planted. And you may never know until you get to heaven, until you die, and whatever that looks like, we get to see the benefit of our actions. But the reality is 20 years later, you may not even know that person, but your words, your actions, your love, and your kindness will change their world forever. And you never, ever know what that person could become and what they'll go on to do. And you may not be Moses, but you might be Moses' mom. And the heroism that didn't get recorded, doesn't get celebrated, could change so much. We want to be the main character of our story, but honestly, if I could replicate the faith of any person in the story of Moses, it's not Moses who did all these incredible miracles, parted a literal sea. It's his mom, because she changed the world. But there's something else I want to focus in on here with Moses and his mom. The truth is that she didn't know. She had no knowledge of what was going to happen. She didn't know that the baby was going to float down towards the castle and that the Pharaoh, the king's daughter, is going to adopt him and then she gets to be a part of that and everything's going to turn out and this is going to catalyze the end of slavery, the end of oppression for their people. She didn't know any of that. All she knew is that she had no other hope. The circumstances were bleak. The circumstances were terrible. There was nowhere to turn. Darkness and chaos were going to rule and win. And there was going to be death and tragedy. But all she knew that the best hope she had was God. That God was in her corner. That even though it was just a hint of light cracking through the door, that was the best shot she had. And she knew that God's power, even just the slightest amount of God's power, is greater than any amount of darkness that could rule over her circumstances in that moment. And that if she put her hope in God in that moment, that was the best case scenario. She had good reason to believe, but she didn't know. And that's what faith is. It's belief based on good reason. It's not just blind, but God has helped us before. God has helped so many people in the past, and we know he'll do it again. But there's still fear, and she had to push past that, push past her selflessness, or push past her selfishness and choose selflessness. And then at the end of the day, because she trusted God, she not only saved Moses' life, but she got to be a part of his life. She didn't get the scenario she wanted. Have you ever been there? Where you think like, oh God, I want this one thing, I want this perfect thing. I bet you if you ask Moses' mom, in that moment, she's probably like, yeah, like if I could have my way, I'd ask God to wipe out all these soldiers, like maybe just save the day, just have them go away. Oh, maybe Pharaoh will just be like, yeah, actually, I changed my mind. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Just forget about that murdering part. And she'd be able to keep her baby 24/7 like a normal mom. That's what we pray for. That's what we hope for. But she didn't get it exactly as she wanted. But she got everything that she needed because she knew that her baby was safe. And she actually got to be a part of it. It wasn't the scenario that she would have handpicked, but it was everything that she needed. Even if we don't get what we want when we ask God for things, when circumstances are falling apart, when we beg God and we say, I want this, I need this. God, I want it to be this way. If you would just do it this way, everything would be perfect. And listen, I don't know why it doesn't turn out the way we want it to be all the time, but I do know this. So when we live, our perspective is right here in front of us, and we can't see the grander plan beyond that. But God is in control. He knows that there's a bigger picture, that there's something that is going to come from every circumstance. But the thing is that He doesn't just abandon us in those decisions that are going to be hard on us. He is right there, giving us everything that we need. The fact is this, friends, God never fails. When chaos looks like it's gonna win, God never fails. Jesus is in control, and He will carry you through anything that you're walking through right now, whether that's your family, your friends, whatever your hopelessness looks like, God never fails. The world can seem hopeless at times. I don't have to give you the lists, right? We all know what's going on around us, and it looks different for you than it is for me. From global issues, climate issues, there's fire everywhere right now. Murders in our city, kids being killed, just horrible things that we pray for. We pray for those families, we pray for the situations happening around the world. Friends, let's continue to pray for those things. Culture can seem hopeless. Beyond just global issues, everything around us seems to be against what you might believe or whatever you kind of stay up late at night being worried about. There is hopelessness all around us. Your finances, maybe your health, the health of your parents, your grandparents, your family members, your financial situation, whatever it is, the soldiers are coming. You can hear them. They're next door. They're coming towards you. And it seems like there is no hope. It seems the only choice you have is what type of destruction you would rather choose. But the good news of a Jesus-based life is that we're not alone in this, and we don't have to walk in that hopelessness. We don't have to choose hopelessness. You don't have to be defeated by what's happening around you. When darkness surrounds us, we have a light that will bring us hope in all situations. That not that you're gonna get it the way that you would handpick to tailor-made. It's not a buffet of your options, but you will get what you need because God doesn't give up on you and God doesn't fail. I say it again, God doesn't fail. And whatever you're walking through right now, whatever you're going through in your life, that when you're driving here, you were thinking, oh, I have to deal with that tomorrow. I have to deal with that. I gotta get through church. I gotta deal with this thing, that conversation with a family member or a friend, whatever it is that is keeping you up and is giving you anxiety attacks, panic attacks, is stressing you out beyond anything that anyone else in the world knows because you've internalized it for so long. Whatever is going on in your heart and your mind, Jesus is hope. He isn't giving up on you. Where you've heard the lie in your head over and over again, He's given up. He's abandoned me. There's hope. You have a future. Jesus is standing right there and He's saying, listen, I died on the cross. I rose again 3 days later. Friends, listen, Jesus defeated death. And I know whatever you're walking through, it sucks and it's awful, and I'm not here to mitigate that or to talk down about what you're walking through. But I can tell you this, it's not as powerful as death. Death. Like finality, the end. Death is the most destructive, final thing, the thing that scares us more than anything. What separates us from animals is that we have an awareness that we all are gonna die. We don't like to think about it. When I think about it, it freaks me out, and I don't wanna think about it. But it's real, and Jesus defeated it. And because Jesus defeated the death that we all face one day, because He's above that, because He holds power over death, He holds power over anything that you're walking through. Whatever you're feeling is unsavable. Whatever you're feeling is destruction and hopelessness and that you're trapped by, Jesus is in control. And Jesus holds the power over that. If you have faith in Jesus, if you trust Him, He may not give you the scenario you want, but He'll give you everything that you need. Because where circumstances say, you're done, Jesus says, I have your back. Where life says that you're trapped, Jesus says, I've made a way. where the voices in your mind say, you should just give up. Jesus says, I haven't given up on you, and I will never fail. I'll never fail you. There's a promise that's shared in the book of Proverbs. It's a document in the first half of the Bible. It's kind of a poetic literature and just great truths. If you're feeling stressed and depressed and you're feeling hopelessness, I encourage you, get a Bible, get the Bible app, and read through Proverbs. Fill you with hope, fill you with wisdom. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. So the project, as we sing this next song, let me encourage you on this. Find that glimmer of hope. Crack the door open. It might just be a hint of hope. But the same way that Moses' mom saw the little bit of faith that she had to have, and God took it and did incredible things. Things that from that moment, if she could be in that moment and see into the future at what happened and what Moses did and what the repercussions, the echoes of her faith led to. The light and the darkness that came from that little bit of heroic, selfless act, she would celebrate it. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And trust that the Jesus who is in control in his time will kick down the doors of what you're walking through. And he will give you everything you need. And he'll cover you with peace in the midst of your circumstance and what you're walking through. And remember this. Write it in your phone, make a wallpaper. I don't care what you do, but do not forget this week and every day after this. God hasn't given up on you. He will not.